I dialed the number with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. "Hello," a woman answered, tired and careful. "Hi," I said, plain and steady. "My name is Daniel. I'm calling because I believe my wife, Emily, is having an affair with your husband, Mark. I have proof. I'm not calling to hurt you. I'm calling because you deserve the truth." Silence. Long enough for my heart to count 10 hard beats. Then her voice came back, small but strong. "My name is Laura," she said. "If you're lying to me, I will hang up. If you're telling the truth, I need to know it all." I told her everything I had, the screenshots, the hotel receipt with both names, the hidden chat on a fake app, the picture of their cars parked nose to nose behind the storage units by the river. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I read dates and times like a person reading measurements off a ruler. When I finished, Laura said 3 words I will never forget. "Thank you, Daniel." 2 hours later, Laura and I walked into the same coffee shop, sat at different tables, and watched the same door. We weren't friends. We were 2 people meeting at the edge of the same cliff. At 3:07 p.m., Emily and Mark pushed that door open, laughing at some private joke, hands brushing like magnets that couldn't hide. Laura stood first. I stood next. Emily's face fell so fast I thought she might faint. Mark's mouth opened, but no words came out. We didn't make a scene. We just showed them the truth and let the room feel it. The manager stepped forward, ready to break up a fight that never started. We left together, for people walking into a storm none of us could control. At 5:22 p.m., the fallout began. Mark tried to spin. Emily tried to cry. Laura said she wanted space. I said I wanted honesty. And then the line I never thought I would hear left my wife's lips like a knife. "If you tell her, Daniel, I will lose everything." I already told her, I said. "You already lost what mattered." By 8 p.m., Laura had packed a bag and driven to her sister's house. By 9:15, Mark's boss had called because rumors travel faster than tires on rain. By 10:03, my own house was so quiet I could hear my neighbor's wind chimes 3 doors down. At 11:11, because of course it was that number, Emily looked at me across our kitchen table, eyes rimmed red, hands locked around a cold mug, and whispered, "Please don't do this. Please don't ruin us." I slid a folder across to her. It held copies of the screenshots and the receipts, plus a short letter I had written the day I found them, because I knew words would be hard when pain was loud. "I will not scream. I will not call you names. I will not fight for you with ugliness. But I will not live inside a lie. We will meet with a counselor. We will talk about separation. We will speak kindly. We will speak clearly. I'm not ruining us, Emily. The secret is." She read it, mouth open, and said nothing. In the quiet, a truth finally showed up and took a chair. After I told her affair partner's wife, Emily lost, not just a lover, not just a game, but the versions of our life that depended on me never finding my courage. And that is the highest, hardest part of this story. That is the moment the title promised. I told the other woman, "My wife lost." But lost what exactly? You want to know. You should want to know. Because what gets lost next is big enough to shake a whole town. Hold that picture, the coffee shop, the folder, the sentence that turned the lock, and come back with me to where the first week board in our floor began to bend. You need to meet the old woman who gave me the rule that saved me from destroying anyone, including myself. Her name is Evelyn. She lives 2 streets over and walks with a bright blue cane that taps the sidewalk like a metronome. The first time I met her, I was fixing a broken stair on our front porch. She stopped, watched for a minute, and said, "Good carpenters measure twice, so they only have to cut once. Good husbands listen twice, so they only have to speak once." Then she smiled like she knew she had just handed me a tool and kept walking. Back then, everything looked fine. Emily and I had been married 9 years. We had a small white house, a goofy dog named Moose, and calendars that stayed too full. I worked as a school custodian on the night shift. I liked it, the quiet hallways, the way clean smells like a fresh start. Emily worked in marketing from home, lots of Zoom calls, lots of just one more email. We weren't rich, but we were steady. Or so I thought. The first blow came soft. Emily started staying up later. She'd say she couldn't sleep and scroll on her phone until her eyes turned glassy. I offered tea. I offered to read out loud like we did when we were dating. She waved me off. I'm fine, she said, which is a sentence that should always be checked like weak boards. Then came the little jabs at me at life. You wouldn't understand this client stuff, Daniel, she'd say, laughing. Or, you're lucky, your job doesn't follow you home. It stung, but I let it slide. My dad used to say, you can pick up every stone in the field or you can grow something anyway. I thought I was being patient. Maybe I was being lazy. I started running into Evelyn more. She'd see Moose and say, that dog looks like trouble and kindness had a baby. She'd see me and say, you look like a man saving all his words for one long conversation. I'd shrug, and she'd pat my arm, and I'd go back to pretending the floor didn't squeak. The first I hit silly and sweet. Emily apologized for being stressed, made pancakes at midnight, and pulled out a deck of cards. We played war like kids. We laughed. For the first time in months, she reached for my hand and didn't flinch when I squeezed it. I went to sleep believing we had turned a corner. I woke up to a locked bathroom door and the sound of whispers I wasn't invited to hear. I didn't go full detective. I didn't put trackers on cars or cameras in vents. I just watched. I noticed a new perfume she swore she didn't own. I noticed client dinners that started on Sundays. I noticed a gray hoodie in our laundry that wasn't mine. I noticed that when I kissed her forehead, she leaned away like a person backing from heat. One Tuesday, Moose got sick from eating something he shouldn't have found in the trash. I took him to the 24-hour animal hospital and sent Emily a text. No answer. I snapped a picture of Moose, silly face and cone, and still nothing. I drove home at 2 a.m., our street dark except for a single car parked 2 houses down. A black SUV with those bright white LED lights that look like the future. When I pulled into our driveway, that SUV pulled away slow, like a cat leaving a fence line. My stomach went tight. In the morning, I went to the kitchen for coffee and found a business card under the fruit bowl. Mark Jensen, sales director. On the back, let's make this pitch sing. The handwriting was not mine or Emily's. It felt like a stamp on my chest. I took that card on my walk. Evelyn was out, blue cane tapping, gray hair in a bun that made her look like a retired ballerina. I held up the card and asked, if you thought this meant something bad, would you ask about it or wait? She looked at the card, then at me. Ask, she said. But ask like you want a future, not a fight. She tugged a receipt from her coat pocket. It was for bread and milk and wrote on the back, kind. Clear. Then she handed it to me like a judge handing down a sentence that still had mercy in it. That night, I set the card on the table. Who's Mark? I asked, simple as turning on a light. Emily blinked too fast. A client, she said. Why? He left his card, I said. And his hoodie. Color came into her cheeks like a storm on a radar. Are you spying on me? I found it in our laundry, I said. Laundry is an honest friend. She grabbed the card like it was a fly she needed to kill and tossed it in the trash. You're overreacting, she said. Please don't make something out of nothing. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to put the hoodie in a bag for goodwill and the feeling in a bag for God. But the board under my feet creaked again, louder this time. And then, like life knew I needed a push, my shift at the school changed because of a pipe break. I came home 2 hours early on a Friday morning and saw Emily standing in the glow of the fridge light, smiling at her phone like sunshine had learned to type. Can I help? I asked. She startled and flipped the phone face down. No, she said. Go to sleep. I tried. I couldn't. 10 minutes later, I walked back into the kitchen for water and found the phone face down on the counter, the screen still lit. A blue bubble. I miss you already. 2 more sleeps. A gray bubble. Same. I'll book the room. The name at the top was not a name. It was a fake contact labeled NM with a plant emoji, like the person who made it thought lies needed watering. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't throw up. I walked Moose slowly around the block. The sky was just turning that thin blue it gets right before morning finds its courage. Evelyn was out early, blue cane, bright shoes. Bad night? She asked. Bad phone, I said. She nodded like she'd been expecting it. When a house creaks, you can ignore it, or you can check the joists, she said. If you check the joists and find rot, you don't scream at the boards. You bring in light. You tell the truth. You brace what can be saved and remove what can't. But you don't hit it with a hammer just because you want to feel strong. I don't want to be cruel, I said. Then don't, she said. But don't be cowardly either. I spent that day doing what I do best, cleaning. I cleaned the whole kitchen. I cleaned the garage. I cleaned my thoughts by writing them down. When Emily came home, I showed her the screenshot of Aunt Em and the message about 2 more sleeps and the hotel room. She didn't deny. She didn't confess. She cried hard and loud and said she was confused and lonely and our marriage felt like a waiting room. I asked if her loneliness had a name. She said no. I asked if she would delete the chat and go with me to counseling. She said yes. For a week, she was sweet again. For a week, she made lists and meals and eye contact. For a week, she let me hold her. Then, on day 8, she said she was going to a client dinner. I almost said, with Mark. I didn't. I said, what time should I expect you? She said, late. Moose watched out the window until midnight. He has always been more honest than people. At 1:14 a.m., I heard the SUV again. That's when I decided I would not live in the waiting room. I got the proof. Not with a trench coat or a disguise. Just with a calm mind and a clear plan. I checked our shared phone plan and found the mysterious Aunt Em number. I printed the hotel receipt that came to our joint email because Emily forgot how paper works. I saw the 2 names on the booking, Mark Jensen and E. Cole. I took 2 photos from the storage lot where they liked to park on lunch breaks because secrets love shade. I put everything in a folder, not as a weapon, but as a flashlight. Then I did the thing that turned the story from a sad song into a clean cut. I called Laura, Mark's wife. I told you about that call. I told you about the coffee shop. What I didn't tell you yet is what Laura and I promised each other in that parking lot afterward. We promised we would not hurt anyone extra. We promised we would not drag kids into it or call bosses or post on Facebook. We promised we would be, in Evelyn's words, kind and clear. The truth would do the cutting. We would do the cleaning. That night, in my kitchen, Emily said the line about losing everything if I told. I told. She lost. What did she lose? First, the story that made her feel safe, that she could have both lives and I would be too gentle to say no. Then, the partner who absorbed the blame. I put it down. Then, the trust of a woman who had given Mark 10 solid years and 2 small boys who liked to line up their toy trucks on the windowsill while Laura cooked. Laura didn't scream at Emily. She didn't even text her. She just went home, took off her ring, placed it in a small dish by the sink, and told Mark that tomorrow they would call a lawyer. The next morning, I told Evelyn what I had done. She squeezed my hand and said, good. Now don't gloat. Then she handed me another receipt. On it, she'd written, do not let your pain turn you into what hurt you. The days that followed were high and low like a broken elevator. High, I slept through the night for the first time in weeks. Low, Emily slept in the guest room and the dog cried at her door. Hi, Laura forwarded me a message from Mark that said, he told you? That's abuse. Laura wrote back, no. That's truth. Low, my mother called and asked what she should tell Aunt Diane who loves gossip. I told her to tell Aunt Diane to water her plants and mind her own porch. Then came the extreme event that ends this chapter and opens the next. On a gray Tuesday, Emily's boss asked her to come in person to present a campaign. She left the house in a navy suit and a mask of calm. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Emily, voice flat, words clipped. They let me go, she said. Because of? I asked. Because the client on the campaign is Mark's company, she said. He told HR I was unstable and he needed me off the project. HR asked questions. It got messy. They said it was a conflict of interest. They said I broke the ethics clause. They boxed up my desk. I closed my eyes. I didn't cheer. I didn't say good. I said, I'm sorry this is happening. Do you have a ride home? I'm in the parking lot, she said. I can drive. Come home, I said. We will be kind. We will be clear. She came home. She sat at the same kitchen table. She cried in small, tired sounds like a person with no water left. And then she looked up at me and said, "Please don't take the house too." I set my hands on the table so she could see I wasn't holding any weapons. "I'm not trying to take anything," I said. "But I'm not going to live inside a lie. We will separate. We will divide. We will sell if we have to. We will do this with dignity. But we will do it." She nodded once, like a judge accepting a truth her own mouth didn't want to say. Then the doorbell rang. Through the glass, I could see Laura on the porch, face calm, a folder in her hand just like mine, and beside her, Evelyn with the blue cane like a drum major for goodness. They had come for a reason that would change the shape of all our next days. I stood to open the door. And that is where I leave you for now at the sound of the bell, the day after I told the other wife, the hour after Emily lost her job, the minute before the next truth stepped into our house. The next chapter begins with that door opening, a new paper on our table, and a decision that will either heal what can be healed or break what should have been broken long ago. When I opened the door, the air outside felt heavy, like a storm about to break. Laura stood straight, calm but not cold, a folder clutched against her chest. Beside her, Evelyn leaned on her blue cane, her other hand tucked neatly behind her back, like she'd been waiting for this very walk her whole life. Emily stayed at the kitchen table, her eyes swollen from tears, her mug of coffee untouched. The sight of Laura on our porch froze her in place. For the first time since everything began, Emily looked small, like the hallway bully who just realized the teacher was watching the whole time. "Can we talk?" Laura asked. I nodded and stepped aside. Evelyn tapped her cane twice on the threshold before crossing in, like she was setting a rhythm for truth. We sat around the table. For adults, one cane, one folder, one silence that could split wood. Laura laid the folder on the table and slid it across to Emily. "These are the papers," she said. "I met with a lawyer this morning. I'm filing for divorce. I don't want drama. I don't want a war. I want my life back. You and Mark made choices. I'm making mine." Emily opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her hands shook so badly that the papers rattled when she touched them. "I don't hate you," Laura said, her voice calm. "I pity you. Because you thought sneaking around was power. But power is truth. And right now, you don't have any." Emily's lips trembled. "It wasn't supposed to," she started, but I raised my hand gently. "Don't," I said. "Don't explain a knife while it's still in someone's back." Evelyn tapped her cane once. "Good," she murmured. Laura turned to me then. "I also wanted to thank you, Daniel, for telling me, for not letting me live another year in a house built on lies." I nodded, but my throat was tight. "I didn't do it to hurt anyone," I said. "I did it because we all deserve to stop living in shadows." Emily's shoulders shook. She pressed her palms to her eyes and whispered, "I lost everything. My job, my marriage, my family, my home." "No," Evelyn said sharply, her voice carrying more weight than any of us expected. "You didn't lose them. You gave them away, piece by piece. You placed them on a table and left them there, and now you're angry that no one saved your seat. Own it. And maybe you can build again on something honest this time." The room went still. Emily lowered her hands and stared at the old woman like she was looking at a mirror she couldn't argue with. Laura gathered her papers. "I'm leaving now. I don't need anything else from you." She stood, gave me a nod, and walked out the door with the dignity of someone who'd already packed her piece. When the door clicked shut, Evelyn leaned her cane against the wall and looked straight at me. "Now comes your choice," she said. "You can cut her down further, or you can cut her loose kindly. Which one do you want to remember 5 years from now?" I swallowed hard. My chest ached with anger, but beneath it was something else, exhaustion. "Kind," I said finally. "I don't want to rot with her mistakes." Evelyn smiled softly. "Then be clear. Papers, plans, boundaries. But no poison. Truth is enough." Over the next weeks, that's exactly what we did. Emily moved into an apartment across town. We divided furniture and bank accounts without screaming. There were moments, ugly ones, when she threw words like coward and failure. I didn't throw anything back. I repeated Evelyn's rule. Kind. Clear. Laura went through with her divorce too. We kept in touch at first, trading updates about lawyers and logistics. One day, she sent me a simple text. The boys are adjusting. Thank you again for not keeping me in the dark. Months passed. The house grew quieter, but not in a painful way. Moose slept at the foot of my bed. I cooked simple dinners. I walked past Evelyn's porch every evening, and she'd raise her cane like a flag, asking only one question, clean or cloudy? Some nights I said cloudy. Some nights I said clean. She always nodded as if both were allowed. One afternoon, I found myself back at the same coffee shop where the truth had exploded. I sat by the window with a book, and for the first time, I didn't feel the weight of ghosts. The same manager who'd once braced for a fight smiled at me and said, "Quiet today, huh?" I smiled back. Quiet is good. Here's the lesson I carried. Revenge isn't always about destroying the other person. Sometimes the deepest revenge is forcing the truth into daylight, letting lies shrivel where they can't grow, and walking away with your dignity intact. My wife lost after I told her affair partner's wife about their cheating. But what I gained was more important, Frida.